It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. Oh, my mama. Oh, my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Rain and Jay's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global with it, got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine, whatever it is that you're doing right now, however you're enjoying the show, listening to it as a podcast, watching the show on YouTube. Thank you for making it part of your routine every day, Monday through Friday. This week, little schedule change, no Friday podcast this week. And that's because on Thursday night, when I normally record my Friday podcast, I'm going to be hosting a very special Locked On NBA Network draft night show with Chad Ford and Rafael Barlow. Rafael hosts the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. Chad Ford, you know, is like the GOAT of all time draft analyst. So I get to be in a studio in Dallas with Chad, with Rafael, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, going pre-draft for an hour, throughout the draft, throughout the second round, with all kinds of analysis with our local experts. So make sure you are streaming this. You can get it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. It streams on Amazon Fire Stick. It streams on Roku. And it's all brought to you by Built Bar. So make sure you're checking that out. That is going to keep me from recording a Friday podcast. So this week, 4 shows for you on the Boston Celtics. I'll be talking today about Team USA's loss in the Olympics, a 25-game Olympic winning streak out the window. Jayson Tatum's play, Evan Fournier's play. What does that mean for his free agency? I'll do that in segments 2 and 3. But let's start with Bradley Beal rumors, because it was reported by our guest last week, Jake Fisher, who wrote that book, Built to Lose. He reports that Bradley Beal is basically weighing his options. So there's a rumor here that says he knows he has to make a decision before the draft. That's what is being reported. That somebody close to Bradley Beal says he knows he has to make a decision before the draft. I will throw out there that on the Chad Ford NBA Big Board podcast, Mark Stein, who is as much of an NBA insider as anybody, said that there's no indication that Beal wants out. However, we might be in a spot here where maybe Beal does. Maybe he feels like, all right, push comes to shove. I got to do something here. And my request is, okay, fine. I know it's not going to happen here in Washington. But if there's no indication that he wants out, I still question whether this feeling of he knows he needs to do something by the draft is necessarily accurate. It's possible that that's somebody from the Washington side saying, hey, buddy, if you want to leave, do us a favor. Don't screw us over by doing it at the trade deadline. Do us a favor. Let us get into this year's draft. Maybe somebody with a top 10 pick in this year's draft, where there is, maybe Golden State with 7 and 14, or I forget what their second pick is, and Wiseman. And maybe Washington can be like, look, if we're going to blow it up, let's blow it up. Let's do it in a draft here where we can get 2-3 good players to build around here. If he does it by the trade deadline, which you might expect. And to me, it makes more sense for Bradley Beal to say, I like the way we finished last year. I like the direction we're going. I've always wanted to do this in Washington. Maybe we can figure some things out. We've got a new coach. Let's roll with it and see. And if by the trade deadline it looks like it's going completely south, I'm going to say, fine, get me out of here, send me to a winner. The problem is that by that point, the Golden State Warriors have either traded those picks or made those picks, and now those picks either have value, maybe they have more value, maybe they have less value. And so doing so by the draft, certainly I would say from the Washington side, if they're sending this signal, they're saying, hey, come on, we want these picks. This is the time to get the value. I understand that. So however that is going to go down, it has been reported by Jake Fisher that Boston, Golden State, Miami, Philadelphia are among the teams that the Celtics, that Bradley Beal could be looking at. However, in the draft special that Adrian Wojnarowski and Zach Lowe did on ESPN, both of them agreed that Boston's not going to, they don't expect Boston to include Jaylen Brown in a deal. So where are we with Bradley Beal here? It's very clear here that the Celtics cannot outbid another team. If they're not going to include Jaylen Brown, which, by the way, they should not include Jaylen Brown, they're not going to outbid another team. Their draft picks are not worth as much as some of these other teams. Again, the Golden State offer can be much better just from draft capital. Restarting that franchise. What's Washington going to want to do at that point? You sell on Westbrook. You sell on Beal. You get as many draft picks as you can. You start over and you build with the next generation. You know, you see. I don't want to say build around Rui Hachimura. Denny Avdia. You've got some young pieces. Maybe you can get your franchise player somewhere in this draft, or maybe you just draft a bunch of talent and you can trade them for a franchise player somewhere. The Celtics, if they're not going to include Jaylen Brown, they're not going to outbid Golden State. Miami can offer better players. Philly, well, I don't know. Philly's going to offer probably Ben Simmons, who, depending on how you feel about Ben Simmons, maybe he will be a better offer, maybe he won't. We'll see. So if the Celtics are going to get Bradley Beal, I'll say what I've said before. The only way for them to get Bradley Beal at this point is for Bradley Beal to give the Wizards a list and to not include any of those other teams that can trade for him on there. To say, I'm not going to re-sign in Golden State. I pick the Lakers. He can say, ooh, the Lakers. And they're not going to be able to put together a package that really does the trick. I mean, maybe, but he could say the Clippers. He can say, I don't know, pick another team. I'm trying to think of capped out teams off the top of my head. But then include Boston as the realistic team, right? The team that he actually wants to go to and say, hey, look, let's PR-wise, I'll go to these other teams. Realistically wise, behind the scenes, I'm only going to Boston, so figure it out. And Boston can be like, you're not getting Jaylen Brown. Here it is. And then they make it work. Then you're giving up Marcus Smart in that scenario, and you're giving up a bunch of their young guys, and all of the draft picks. The draft picks, I don't think that they're going to be entirely valuable. The only thing that you can say is, from a Washington perspective, that you hope it blows up, that you hope that having three guys of similar skill sets is just too much repetition, and it's not going to be the waves of attack that the positive side would say, hey, you get those three guys, you just run this motion offense, and anybody who wants to take it, anybody who gets a lane can go, and everybody who gets open who wants to shoot can shoot. If that doesn't work out, you can say, hey, maybe the tail end of Boston's picks would be possibly better when it all goes to crap and everybody leaves. But I think most likely the Celtics, you find yourself a point guard that can get you through this season. You say, hey, Bradley Beal, you're going to run a little point. Jayson Tatum, you're going to run a little point. Jaylen Brown, you're going to run a little point. You have you three, you keep, whichever center you have left over, and whatever, point guard that you can get for the, at that point, maybe it's even Yamadar for all we know. But however you do it, there's certainly some volatility there. But the Celtics will probably be able to figure out, and they'll probably be pretty good and good enough where those draft picks can be at best, middle of the pack, like 17, 18, 19. Like if you're Washington, that's still not going to be highly valuable. So you're still going to be getting whatever the Celtics throw at you. It's not really, I talk about this a lot. It's not really the most realistic package. I don't think. I just don't see, unless Bradley Beal forces his way to Boston, I just don't see it. And in fact, I just don't know that Bradley Beal is going to ask out. I just don't think that he's at that point yet. Now he might be, and he might be like, hey, if you're going to put a gun to my head and make me choose one, then fine, see ya. But if there's no indication that he's wanted to leave, you don't even have the Olympics Tatum tampering. Not that he needs to tamper at the Olympics. I mean, they're best friends. So, but I don't know. I know Boston has to be in a position to make this deal, and they should make sure that they're in a position to make this deal. I still don't know that if Washington, if push comes to shove, that they don't take a Golden State offer. Golden State has been dying to move these picks. Golden State's dying to make this move. They are willing to do basically whatever, minus trading away their core pieces. It makes the most sense for Washington to look at that and say, hey, if we're going to rebuild, let's do it with this year's draft. But we'll see what happens. I mean, this is crazy rumor time. So, and the draft is next week, or actually the draft is later this week. The draft's in a few days. So, and make sure you watch the draft show. I'll be back to talk about Jayson Tatum's performance in quotes, because he didn't play a whole lot, didn't play particularly well in the opening game at the Olympics. So I'll do that after I tell you about Built Bar, which is the official protein bar of the United States track and field team. That's pretty cool. They are the best protein bar on the market because basically it's a candy bar that has protein bar characteristics. In fact, you go to their website and it says your new candy bar is a protein bar. And right now, free Built travel cooler with each bar purchase. So you keep them nice and cool when you're running around or running your errands or driving to work and you want to keep a Built bar handy. You're really getting a great bar because you're somewhere around 130 to 100 calories per bar, which is pretty good. And you're getting 17, 18 grams of protein with only 4 or 5 grams of sugar and 4 or 5 net carbs, all with great flavors like coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, double chocolate, salted caramel, orange, cookies and cream. Whatever your preference is, they've got something here for you. If you've got a nut allergy, no problem. If you're on a keto diet, no problem. Check it out. If you're going to do it, use the promo code LOCKED15. LOCKED15 every time you go. So try one particular flavor, try a mixed box, try whatever. You can get 15% off with LOCKED15 if you go to Built.com. It's Built.com. I keep saying Built Bar, but it's Built. It both work. Doesn't matter. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. Team USA starts out the Olympics in rough shape, losing to France 83-76. They were up by 7 with, a few minutes to go, and they lost by 7. A 16-2 run to close the game for France. This was a rough finish. In multiple times in this game, it looked like the United States was going to run away with it. They just never put that closing run together. Their defense is kind of not great sometimes. They have the added element of bringing in Devin Booker, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and trying to incorporate those guys. Chris Middleton played 5 minutes and just didn't look like himself, looked like he was jet lagged. I think he's probably toast right now. Devin Booker played 18 minutes. Drew Holiday is a monster, man. He played 28 minutes. He was the best player in the fourth quarter. He was picking guys up full court. He was playing great defense, picked up right where he left off from the finals. But the Team USA struggling for consistency. Kevin Durant, foul trouble, was not himself. Damian Lillard was not himself. Jayson Tatum, not himself. He played almost 24 minutes, did not start, which is interesting. He scored 9 points. He had one decent stretch where he had a couple of breakaways and a breakaway dunk. And then after that, he had a three and a couple of free throws. Nothing special. He had, one rebound, 2 block shots. It was kind of like a blah game. He wasn't on the floor down the stretch. Didn't play most of the fourth quarter. Wild to see that Jayson Tatum, I don't know if he's fallen out of favor, but it's not looking good for Tatum right now, Team USA. He starts off a little cold, a little ISO. He wasn't quite moving great. He had some moments, but then he had moments where he wasn't moving defensively. He had a missed box out, a couple of them that led to baskets. He had lapses that led to slips, and look, the Team USA is switching everything, which if you're really active and you're doing it the right way, you can keep everybody in front of you. That's the whole point of switching everything. Whenever they try to turn a corner, there's a new person there. You're not trailing behind everybody. So you're building this kind of consistent just fence around. So you're not allowing teams to drive. But if you're not playing that switching defense precisely, you leave yourself open to slips. Basically, a guy goes to set the screen and then just takes off to the basket, or various mismatches that we saw Rudy Gobert take advantage of it, pinning a guard and just mouse in the house, get the ball, one dribble, don't even take a dribble, just spin and go up with it because nobody's going to be there to block you. If you're not careful, you're going to put yourself in those situations. And Team USA just is with Jayson Tatum. He made some mistakes. Just let guys get to the rim. He went under a screen on one I saw with Nando De Colo, where it was he gave De Colo like 6 feet of room to shoot a warm-up three at that point. So I don't know what's going on with Jayson Tatum. He doesn't seem to be fully engaged. We heard after the World Cup a couple of years ago, all of this love from Popovich, and how much he needs to focus on his defense, and if he focuses on his defense, who knows what you can get, and all of that stuff, and that's still true. But I don't know where Tatum is right now. I don't know if his head is there. I don't know if he's fully engaged. I don't know if he's upset that Bradley Beal didn't make it, or I don't know if he's upset that his family's not there. I don't know if he's just in a slump. I have no clue. But he didn't start, which is really interesting, and he wasn't on the floor down the stretch, which is really interesting. So now Tatum has gone from not even – like he went from, I thought, fourth option behind Durant, Beal, Lillard, to not even an option, really. So I don't know if this was just a matchup thing against a French team that has size, but Tatum's got size. I just don't understand what Greg Popovich is thinking there, what Jayson Tatum has shown Popovich to not get on the floor. And remember that Ime Udoka is there, and his Tatum's head coach is going to be there advocating for him, you would think. And if Udoka can't I'm not even going to say that Udoka is arguing for him or saying that he should play or not. But if there was an argument for Tatum to play, Udoka would be making it. And you would think that maybe Tatum would get some run here. It could just be a one-game thing, but it's a very interesting scenario for Tatum, who just kind of existed in this game. Made some mistakes. He did make some decent plays. I don't want to crap all over him because I don't think he sucked in the game. But he did make some mistakes, but he did make some decent plays. And then for a lot of the game, he was just kind of there. And so I thought after the Spain game, that was a great kind of recovery from Tatum. And I put in the headline of that podcast, like, hey, Tatum shows USA how it's done. That when you're not getting your shots, you go out there and you facilitate. He never even did that in this game. So I don't know if Tatum is struggling to find his place in this team or what. And I'm really going to be curious to see what he takes out of it. Where does he go from here? What motivation does he get out of this? Does this knock him down a peg? Does this give him motivation to prove that he deserves more time? Or if the U.S. fails here and doesn't medal or doesn't win the gold, what motivation does that give him? It's a storyline here worth watching throughout the Olympics. Now, the next game for the United States, I believe, is against Iran, and that's going to be Wednesday night at 12:40 a.m., so past midnight Wednesday. I don't know where that's going to air. They've been putting these on the Peacock app, whatever. But we'll see. I think the next two games for Team USA should be okay, and they should win. And let me just put this out there too. The French national team is really good. Like that's a good team. The U.S. losing to that team is not shocking. There's not like oh my God, they lost. Oh, how's that possible? French team is good, man. Gobert, they got Fournier, who played out of his mind, and now we'll talk about that next. And they've got NBA players up and down that roster. Good NBA players up and down that roster. So that's not a shock. But Tatum's role in this is going to be. I'm very curious to see how he does in these next two group games and what this means for his future. So let's talk about Evan Fournier when I come back here after I talk about BetOnline, which is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action, even the Olympics. Plenty of opportunities to bet there on the Olympic side, baseball, anything else that's out there, international sports, everything. Go to BetOnline, use your laptop, use your mobile device, it doesn't matter. Sign up. You're going to create your username, you're going to create your password, and then you're going to enter Locked On as a promo code. That'll get you 50% welcome bonus. So username, password, blah, 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 Locked On, make a $200 deposit. But welcome bonus is $100. That's how the 50% welcome bonus works. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get into the game at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Please gamble responsibly. Hey, like I said, the draft is on Thursday, and obviously I'm doing the live draft show, but you want to get caught up on things. You want to get a sense of how that draft might go. Check out the Ultimate Mock Draft that's presented by Locked On and Odyssey, which was an entire first round picks made, trades made by our local hosts acting as GMs for their teams. Then hosted by David Locke and analysts Chad Ford, Brian Scalabrine, Ryan McDonough, many, many more. It's a great way to get caught up and get a sense of how this draft might go. So search for the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 on the new Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. Odyssey is your audio home for all the sports, podcasts, music, and news that matter to you. That's AUDACY. So Evan Fournier did great in this game against the United States. Really showed out and carried the team, scored 28 points on 11 of 22 shooting, was 4 of 12 from three. He hit a crazy three-pointer after Gershon Yabusele, old friend Yabu, dove, saved the ball, got it over to Fournier, who hit a shot. He just turned and fired and hit this three-pointer that put the U.S. and put France up over the U.S. With a little less than a minute to go. Basically, was the backbreaker. So Fournier looked great, and I think, first of all, great sign that he is back, that he has overcome his COVID stuff. Like, all of that has been great. Like, it's an awesomely encouraging sign to see him out there playing well and, doing everything that he did. Now, a lot of people made jokes like, oh, now he's a max player. But some people are actually like concerned that his play in this tournament now, if he continues this, let's say he just continues and dominates the tournament and is the best player at the Olympics, and people are going to be like, oh, wow, he's going to raise his value. I don't think he raises his value. I really don't. Now, they might say, his side might say, hey, look at this. But there are a lot of elements here involved in how he dominates the game or how he played well in this game. First and foremost, he played against a U.S. team that was clearly discombobulated to a degree on defense. I mean, we saw, especially when they incorporated Holiday and Middleton to a much lesser. There was a play where Middleton chased after a guy, and probably because it was drilled into his head to chase after the guy that he was chasing, that he was defending in the NBA Finals, that his job was to bull through every pick. And Booker came in and was like, yeah, switch. And so Booker switched, Holiday chased, and Yabu, I think, was the beneficiary all by himself underneath the basket. And so mistakes were made defensively by Team USA. Also, FIBA rules. The ball is different. The three-point line is closer. It's basically everything's a corner three. There's different physicality that's allowed. It's just a different game. It's a slightly different game. And that benefits him. And so I'm not worried that a 28-point game was going to make his agent go to Brad Stevens and say, did you say $15 million a year? Well, the price just went up to $16.5. Ha ha. That's not going to happen. This is the NBA. And we know what Evan Fournier is in the NBA. And the market is being set, and that's what the market is set for. If the NBA adopts some of these FIBA rules, then okay, now it's a little bit of a different story. But I'm not too concerned that Fournier is going to be playing so well that he's going to raise his NBA free agent stock. He's going to play on the Boston Celtics he's going to play next to Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. He's not playing with Nando De Colo and, Mustafa Fall and, those guys. He's playing with, he played with Rudy Gobert, which is great, but he's also playing with different teammates, a different style, everything's different. Everything is different with the Celtics. Everything's different in the NBA. They're not paying him to play for the French national team. We've seen it. We saw Patty Mills play great. Guys in the NBA who are kind of like players can go back to their home countries and play out of their minds. And so I'm not worried about a bump. I don't think we should be worried about a bump. I don't think there's going to be a scenario where hey, Fournier is playing great. He's going to command more money in the NBA, and he's going to get too expensive for the Celtics. And now the Celtics have to do something else, and it's going to screw their whole plan up. I just don't see that at all. I see Evan Fournier out there playing well and shooting well and being happy that he's shooting well. Now, the only thing that might impact his NBA free agency is whether a team was wondering, hey, how much is this COVID going to really impact him? Is he going to be, I think, permanently is going to be a permanent issue? This did answer that question. And so if there was a team that was kind of on the fence about it and said, well, we want to see if he's better first, well, now you're seeing that he's better. So if that has any say, then okay, that might be the only impact, but it's not financially. No, just be happy that Evan Fournier is playing well. You don't have to be happy that he beat Team USA. I don't know what's going to happen with Team USA. This is going to be a real struggle for them, but hopefully they get things together, because I don't want them to be embarrassed. I just don't want that. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So don't worry about Fournier. It's all good. Please subscribe to the show if you're new. If this is your first opportunity, a little bit of a different background here that I've got to work on, but don't worry about that. I'm going to be podcasting from multiple locations, so working on the decor in location number 2 as that, I got cool stuff coming. Don't worry about it. So if you're watching on the show, watching on the YouTube channel, yeah, that's a little bit different here, but don't worry about it. If you're a new listener on the podcast, please listen. Please rate and review, subscribe, comment on the YouTube, and most importantly, share the podcast. Tell your friends that they should be listening to the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.